So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Karwaan Heritage Exploration Beyond the Myth workshop. Today, we are having our second guest lecture, and it's our privilege that we have today with us Dr. Shankar Kumar. So, Dr. Shankar Kumar joined in Hindu College as an assistant professor in the year 2006, and he has earlier worked with the Confederation of Indian Industry, the Apex Industry Chamber in India. He has also been awarded by the Junior Research Fellowship by the University Grant Commission, and then Dr. Kumar has chosen the subject which he fascinated a lot, history, and then he's completed his M.Phil, subsequently PhD from the Department of History. And Dr. Kumar has been very much interested and his research work on ancient Indian medicine. Apart from this, Dr. Kumar has also been a part of several publications, which includes co-authored book like Concise Social Science and co-edited book like Indian History and Culture. Dr. Kumar has also delivered several lectures on Indian history and Indian culture that has been televisioned live by the CEC. And apart from this, he has also been featured as a resource person and expert on several television programs like History in the Eye of Historian on Lok Sabha TV and Epic KDUs on Epic Channel. Dr. Kumar was the Deputy Director, Non-Cognitive Women Education Board, NCDEP, University of Delhi, in the year 2013. So, on behalf of Team Karban, I welcome you, sir. So, without taking any further ado, over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Srishti, for very kind words. And good evening, uh, the participants of this orientation program, which I am told is progressing very well. And you already have had an audience with a notable set of historians who must have spoken about different timelines, different aspects of ancient Indian history. Uh, some of the primers that I would like to discuss right at the beginning is that this particular session I look forward to in terms of very robust interaction. So it should be a learning process for me in the sense that the audience is drawn from a wide gamut of professional pursuits students apart, and it will be really academically very healthy if you pose questions which I can only try to answer. I'm not sure whether I'll have answers to all the queries that you raise. In fact, history or early Indian history may not have answers to all kinds of things that keep us engaged in terms of queries. Uh, Second thing is that I will be talking about the Vedic age, which has been the topic assigned to me. And so there is a timeline issue that I would like to discuss right at the beginning. Uh, Conventionally, now, uh, I'm talking of the professional historians who set on the task of writing history, say, from around the beginning of the last century. So there has been a general consensus that 1500 BCE to around the middle of the first millennium BCE is the time which gets covered under Vedic age. We had several nationalist historians like Altaker, Majumdar, and so forth, who used this term, Vedic age, to designate this timeline. Of course, the context, the historical context, or which formed the intellectual backdrop or motivational backdrop of these historians to write history the way they did was different. In the 1920s, in the 1930s, we were in the middle of Indian struggle for independence. The national steam, the national pride, the bruised national pride had to be presented in a way in the colonial times to to give a counter to the imperial narrative. So, quite a few claims were made on the basis of whatever evidence that we had, mostly literary, because even till date, if you look at the Rig Vedic period, or even for the later Vedic period, say which ranges from 1000 to 600 BCE, we don't have a very direct, uh, I would say, archaeological sources that can tell us with fair degree of certitude uh, about the life and times of the Vedic people as such. There are archaeological sites now, painted graveware sites or pre-iron painted graveware sites that can stand as candidate for this, for because the architects of these sites should be material architects of these sites should be belonging to the same period. So it's all coming from the same geography that we talk of as Vedic geography, and it comes from the same period. So, well, legitimately, they can claim to be the material, I would say, correlate or material coordinate of the Vedic people as such. So that gives us a little bit of an idea in terms of material culture, but primarily the information comes from the Vedic sources, the Rig Veda, and subsequently the other three Vedas, the Brahmanas, and so forth, drawing up to Upanishads around the middle of the first millennium BCE. So, this is the range of sources that tell us about the Vedic people. But the timeline, as I said, as a primer, is something that's deducted from this. It's not directly, sources don't directly tell us about the timeline as such. We have been able to use circumstantially in terms of other correlates to to kind of set it up in the same period, say 1500 BCE to around 600 BCE, and then further segregate early Vedic period from what subsequently went on to become later Vedic period. As these are artificial categories. Please understand, these are artificial categories used for our understanding, right? So we as students of history try to understand them as two separate timelines. Why? Why the need? The need is because the society that we discover around 1500 BCE and the society that we discover almost in the same area with little bit of eastern drift, say around 600 BCE, appear to be little different. Appear to be little different in the sense that now, towards the end of the Vedic age, as such, around 600 BCE, uh, there are urban centers coming up. uh, the society which earlier seemed to be not so differentiated now becomes robustly differentiated. So there are different social groups, economic groups, new social identities are coming into being. New occupational pursuits are coming through the sources. Uh, urban urbanization, as I said, that's there. The basis of politics, the basis of governance shifts from, say, from lineage, uh, from family group, uh, or as historians call it, from kinship, kin group, kin group basis of political leadership gives way to territorial control basis of governance. And that is captured best through the emergence of Janapadas and subsequently Mahajanpadas by the 6th century BCE, which is around the time that the Vedic age is supposed to have ended. So the point is that these are some of the changes uh, which appear to be very drastic. The subsistence shifts from, say, mostly pastoral and very incidentally agricultural to predominantly agricultural, although pastoral groups also did survive towards the end of the Vedic age. So these are some of the very important shifts that get noticed in the timeline that we are talking about. And therefore, there was this need to segregate what comes across to us as Vedic age through Rigved, Samved, Yajurved, Atharved, Brahmanas, Aranyaks, and Upanishads as an undifferentiated kind of worldview, right? To be segregated into early Vedic and later Vedic. So, this is again a post facto kind of categorization that we have made for our convenience. That okay, let's call what we get from Rig Ved as early Vedic, and let's call what we get from the subsequent Vedic sources as later Vedic, right? And the dividing line is around 1000 BCE. These are not categorical kind of clean timelines, but they serve us well in terms of segregating changes in society, changes in economy, changes in religion and religiosity, and also the family setup and so forth. And there are several other associated elements alongside. So this is something that we should keep in mind, that it's all artificially done for our convenience to make sense of a very big timeline in terms of continuity and change. Now, continuity and change, as we all know, is something which is perennial to history and history writing and the flow of history as well, right? So the past practices do continue. They continue. They continue, and that's why we call it Vedic age, right? So the Vedic sensibilities are very much there, but alongside that, say around 1000 BCE, there are several other changes that also get registered, and that necessitates it's being labeled as something else, but the overbearing arc of Vedic is still there, and whatever deviations that we discover from Vedic sensibilities, uh, they are uh, they are very I would say not so stark and somewhat muted. The lineage of the later Vedic corpus of historical writing is unquestionably linked to or sought to be originating from the Vedic or Rigvedic or Rigved as such. So the sensibilities captured in Rigved is never severed with, right? This is quite unlike uh, the Buddhist period, say around 6th century BCE, or coming of Jainism, etc. And that's why in your textbooks you discover terms like heterodox sects, right? So there is some element of heterodoxy against the usual practice, there is new thing coming. So in later Vedic period, that's not the case, but deviations are there, right? So that is something which get these are some of the things that get captured when we use these two timelines, early Vedic and later Vedic. So this is the rationale. This is the rationale for using these two categories, so that the economic, political, social changes can be made sense of, and they all are coming from uh, Vedic sources, which if you do a cursory reading of it, it would appear to be undifferentiated. But if you apply your historical mind of time, space, and so forth, you will discover change, right? So this is what the modern historians have done to what comes as undifferentiated corpus of Vedic writing to us, right? So that's another thing that I wanted to discuss right at the beginning. In terms of sources, the iconic four Vedas, Rig Ved, Samved, Yajurved, Atharvaved, they constitute the basic building block in terms of literary sources. Uh, uh, the early Vedic, of course, gets captured through Rig Ved, 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE, and later Vedic from 1000 BCE to 600 BCE, largely. Rigved Samhita, as most of you would be knowing, contains 1028 hymns, richas, organized in 10 mandals. Now, these mandals are also not composed at one point of time. So, what comes across to us as Rig Ved, actually, if you look at the earliest manuscript of Rig Ved, something that you can go and touch today, something that you can go and see as something written, they have been penned down as specific manuscripts uh, very many centuries later than what we are talking about in terms of timeline, 1500 to 1000 BCE. So it must have been around the beginning of the Common Era, or maybe later, that someone chose to pen down Rigvedic richas in some form of manuscript, and these manuscripts are not found all at once at one place. They are scattered. So, in terms of manuscript findings, you'll find that some manuscript is containing 4 or 5 mandals, or some manuscript is containing only the last mandal, and therefore they have also been organized into distinct timelines. And it appears that book 2 to book 7 of Rigved constitutes the earliest strata of information, whereas book 1 and book 8 to 10, they constitute the later strata of information, although they are all part of Rigvedic corpus only. So uh, again, these are subsequent works. These are modern works that organize this data into differentiated timelines, right? Now, later Vedic sources would include, of course, what we understand as Yajurved, Atharvaved. I'm leaving out Samaved because Samaved essentially is the compilation of Rigvedic richas, which could be sung in musical form and so forth. And then, alongside these iconic four Vedas, we also have a number of Brahmanas, right? And what are these Brahmanas? So they are associated with uh, various Vedic schools, right? And earliest, in fact, Brahmanas are also important because they constitute the earliest work in prose in Sanskrit, right? And what do? They essentially explain and discuss various rituals and mantras that are contained in Rig Veda, and therefore it is a Vedic source, right? It is part of the Ved, right? Uh, we have various Brahmanas. You must have heard of them. Aitreya Brahmana, which essentially explains and discusses Rig Ved. We have Satpatha Brahman, which essentially is about Yajurved, Jaimaniya Brahman, Samaved, and so forth. And then we also have the earliest strata of Aranyak and Upanishads. Now, Aranyak and Upanishads were composed around 600 BCE, and you again must have heard of several Upanishads, for example, Brihadraranya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, right? They discuss philosophical issues. Now, if you look at Vedic sources as such, Rig Ved, uh, if you compare, जैसे कहते हैं ना कि ऋग्वेद की तासीर को अगर आप उपनिषद की तासीर से कंपेयर करेंगे तो आपको लगेगा कि उपनिषद जो है वो ज़्यादा फिलोसॉफिकल है. It is talking about abstract things like Brahma, Atma, like Paramatma, right? Now, these are, of course, concerns, origin issues is concerned in Rigved, but they don't philosophize much. Rigved is little more direct in terms of material, transactional, mundane things as compared to Upanishads. Now, historians have given fantastic sociological explanation for this, uh, historical sociological explanation for this that may be taken up for discussion if some of you are interested in it. And then we find that later Vedic texts reflect the concern of specific social groups in power terms. When we say power terms, what we mean here is that they generally talk well about certain social groups, and it appears, some historians appear, some historians say that maybe that the Brahmins as a social category have have been at the center of it. So the authorship is attributed to it, or in general, its attitude towards Brahmins, as captured in these texts, is a little positive as compared to, because now you're talking of 6th century BCE. When you compare that with what comes across from Buddhist sources or other heterodox sect sources, they ridicule this social group as well, right? So this is how the element of bias in authorship is detected in these sources. Broadly speaking, by the time we reach from Rig Ved to later Vedic texts, the society overall appears to be more differentiated. What do we mean by differentiation of society? So there's social differentiation, there is economic differentiation. So, I mean, uh, it's like suppose uh, we produce some grains in the Vedic period, and these grains, number of these grains is limited. So we don't assign particular name for particular grain. So we use a common term, say yavar, for all kinds of grains that we are aware of, because after all, in totality, we know of very few grains. But by the time we reach later Vedic period, the variety and number of grains has multiplied, right? And if the variety and number of grains has multiplied, so we get a plurality of names for different grains. Now, this is symptomatic of the fact per se. It tells us that there are more grains being produced, but this is also symptomatic of the fact that there is differentiation happening even in nomenclature. Similarly, social groups that we generally call them as one or four or by whatever number. Now that social identity is also multiplying. So within a particular world, you have several other groups who are uh, who are very much there, and they have to be accounted for. So this is what I mean when I say social differentiation and economic economic differentiation is again the sense of hierarchy built in it. There are some groups which are having access to more resources. There are groups which are not having access to that many resources. There is uh, uh, rich poor access that's operational, and that's how society is is, uh, is coming across to us through these texts. So there is that element of differentiation happening. What is the geography that we are talking of when we say Vedic age? The geography captured in the Vedic literature, again, it's an onerous task, and historians have devoted a lot of attention in identifying places' name, rivers' name, uh, trees identification, animal identification, whether such animals are found in the ecological conditions that are present in the Sapta area, northwestern part of Indian subcontinent, or not. So these are the ways by which historians have come to assign or understand a particular geographical patch as the area of Rigved, and then they feel that by the time we reach the times of later Vedic sources, say from 1000 to 600 BCE, the area is advancing mostly towards east. So the middle Gangetic plain, upper Gangetic plain, and the middle Gangetic plain also are coming uh, under the Vedic people, under the mobility that is registered by Vedic culture, Vedic people. uh, the so this is how geography is identified. But if you identify the core geography of Rigved, it should be the valleys of Indus River, Saraswati River, Drishadvati, and the five rivers that we understand as Punjab, that constitute Punjab. So that formed the core geography of Rigvedic people. Uh, Now, as archaeology progressed, so, as I said right in the beginning, that there were painted graveware sites. Some painted graveware sites were pre-iron, some were uh, iron containing painted graveware sites. So, there have been attempts to correlate these painted graveware sites with Rigved, because they happen to be coming from the same area and belong to the same timeline. So there is again a distinction between non-iron using painted graveware. Uh, so the graveware cultures of Punjab and Haryana, uh, Bhagwanpura can be one site, Dadheri, Katplan, they are all early Vedic sites. They are pre-iron painted graveware sites. They belong to the same geography and also the same timeline, 1500 to 1000 BCE. They are located along Saraswati and Satluj River, which are prominently present in Rigvedic corpus. Uh, and it appears from the reading of this that they, they predominantly should have been a pastoral society. Copper and bronze, of course, was known to them, but largely iron was not known to them. Largely, iron was not known to them. So this is how economic inference is made out of this. Rigvedic people were not living very sedentary kind of life, and therefore the archaeological debris that we discover for Rigvedic people or pre-Rigvedic pre-iron painted graveyard cultures are not very thick. You will discover that the archaeological debris is very thin, and that is very logical, because if you don't stay at one place, then you would not create a lot of debris, which I mean, jokingly, it is said uh, that archaeology is the dustbin of past. Right? Archaeology is the dustbin of past. This is because if some items are precious and valuable, no one will leave it unattended for the posterity to discover as archaeological finding. So quite possible that some of the Harappan golds or Vedic gold uh, is remolded, recycled, and we are even using it, right? So, but if it comes to, say, some items that that can be dispensed with, well, they are left at a particular site. Even after abandoning, no one disturbs them, and we chance upon, through diggings, such items. And that's quite like, suppose in your lifetime, I believe you must have changed your locations, particularly as students, when you shift hostels, say from one room to you go to some other room. This is very usual. Just look at, or spare some thought about this. What are the items that you don't carry from one room to the other when you are shifting? If you have some beautiful romantic cards sent by your friends, you will definitely carry it, right? These days they are not coming in physical form, they are all stored in your device, digital device. If it is some valuable item like your mobile or your some necklace or some other chain, some gold chain, or watch, wristwatch, etc., these are the first items that you care to shift and very safely transport to the new place, even when you are changing your location. And just to spare thought over this, what are the items that you just don't care to carry, although they belong to you, but you just abandon them, you let them be there in your old room, which you are leaving? These are what? These are, say, old newspapers, right? Your Hawaii chappals, right? Some broken, say, bucket, right? Some mugs, whatever. These items which you think that, well, they don't command a lot of price and so forth, so that you don't care to transport. Now, when I say archaeology is the dustbin of past, these are the items which people chose not to carry with them when they are abandoning a particular place, and these are the items that the archaeologists chance upon in their archaeological diggings. So, when you find something of this sort, why I say this is, and if you are reimagining the time through those archaeological findings, please understand that it is the debris that you are, it is the dustbin that you are looking at. The actual material culture should have been very many times more spectacular than this, right? Unless you chance upon something which is so rare. You chance upon some gold sword, or you chance upon something spectacular. I mean, you may glamorize this craft of archaeology, but fact of the matter is that when you actually get into the business of doing archaeology, it's a it's a rather dull kind of a job, right? So you chance upon things which no one bothers to even look at, and you are making a lot of inference, historical inference out of this and so forth. So uh, that's about the early Vedic sites as such. And then what we find in archaeological culture is that iron starts coming in these painted graveyard culture, and then we generally tend to associate iron using painted graveyard sites with later Vedic period. And here the geography shifts. Say, now in the later Vedic period, you also have Punjab, Rajasthan, Haryana, Delhi, Western UP. So the upper Gangetic Plain gets covered in this. So you have sites like Panipat, Purana Kila, Mathura, Bairat. You have Sonipat, Atranji Kher, Alamgirpur, Hastinapur, Jakhera, Jodhpura, No, Sravasti. So these are some of the iron-bearing painted graveware sites that should belong to painted graveware iron-using cultures, and therefore to later Vedic period. So the geography in the later Vedic period has suddenly widened and shifted to new geographical horizons with respect to Rigved. You also have now Ganga Yamuna Doab in its ambit, the coastal area, Kashi area, Videh, even Magadh. So the present day Bihar, right? So that is the geographical stretch that you get to see in the later Vedic period. So historians do ask this: why this shift? What should have necessitated this shift? Some historians say it could be hydraulic changes, it could be desiccation of Saraswati, the river, or it could be demographic pressure, uh, or some argue that, well, it could be as a result of economic shift from pastoralism to agriculture as the mainstay, and therefore they are moving towards the high rainfall area, because now is the time when we are discovering the joy of monsoon after a hot summer, and we know that it all comes from in terms of land area, it comes from eastern part of India to northwestern part of India. So the average rainfall, say in Bengal, is more than that of Bihar. In Bihar, it is more than that of Western UP. In Western UP, it is more than that of what gets almost very dry by the time you reach Pakistan, right? So the moisture bearing capacity of monsoon winds, they diminish as they move from eastern part of India to northwestern part of India. So the movement is in the opposite direction because of the agricultural potential, because of the monsoon, because of the availability of rain, and not many things get tied up. So if you read R.S. Sharma, he will talk about iron technology. He will talk about the kind of soil that you will discover in Middle Gangetic Plain, the appropriate resources that are necessary for this economic shift from pastoralism to agriculture, the social setup, the heterodox beliefs that gained traction in Middle Gangetic Plain in the form of Buddhism, Jainism, and so forth. So it is all wound up to argue very vociferously by him as the revolutionary role of iron towards the end of Vedic period and so forth. And this could have necessitated this geographical shift from northern part of India to the eastern part of India, or northwestern part of India to eastern part of India, right? So this is about the shifting geography, and well, coming to early Vedic economic development, and in the meanwhile, Srishti, please ensure that if you are feeling very bored, you can interrupt me straight away, ask questions, because it's I can go on this by dilating what we discussed as economic changes, then social changes, religious changes, and so forth. So please feel free to interrupt and ask questions if you so desire, and not only wait for the lecture to be over. I mean, if it comes to that. Okay.
I, sir, if you don't mind, one participant has just raised a hand. So, if we can take the question.
Please ask them do it verbally instead of just typing it.
Yeah.
Because I told you that
So
I'm at a different location. Yeah.
yeah. So yes, Aninde has a question. So Aninde, you can turn on your mic and ask.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. First of all, thank you, sir. Thank you for taking the lecture. So my question is around the when you say that they move towards the agricultural this thing. So then, are we saying that the early Vedic period till they move, they were not farmers? So what were their profession? Number one, and number two, if we have learned in the prehistoric ages also that there has been certain evidence of farming that has already started. So if that has started in the prehistoric age, then why suddenly the in the Vedic age they were not farmers? So is there any linkage around that? If I'm missing out something here.
See, uh, thank you for this question because it allows me to clarify the point that I'm making. Uh, there could be one stray reference in a particular source, but when we are talking of, say, what is the assertion? Say, what is the assertion here? Assertion is that the mainstay of or mainstay of the early Vedic society is not agriculture, whereas the mainstay of later Vedic society seems to be agriculture. Right? This is the assertion. Now, to supplement this or to substantiate this, you cite evidence, you cite assertions, you also cite logic. So it's one thing to statistically say that, well, Rigved refers to one grain, Yava, or not a variety of grains and so forth. Their familiarity with agricultural operations is limited. The term, the nomenclature for hull or plowshare, etc., that also is drawn from, say, words that are not Indo-Aryan, but from local communities. For example, Udumbar, for the wood from which wooden plowshare was made and so forth. So even etymologically, these things are spoken of, that the familiarity with agricultural operations or agricultural calendar, uh, then is very limited in Rigved, whereas it multiplies in the later Vedic period. So these are some of the things that are coming from sources. But when you also supplement it with logic, right? And also rationality, rational behavior, rational social behavior. So this is it, that, well, a more rainfall fed area with kind of soil which is more conducive for agriculture is something which is lying waiting in the middle Gangetic plains and eastward, and therefore it made sense to move from upper Gangetic plain to middle Gangetic plain and eastward. And then, with this logic, historians work on these sources and say that, okay, these operations, these beliefs, these references now make sense with this rational trajectory of movement. Now history is not a discipline which is always bound to such rationalities. No, there can be U-turns. There can be instances where these rationalities go out of the window, right? But if you telescope, not microscope. If you telescope the plethora of Vedic data into this logic, it makes a coherent kind of argument that the movement is from upper Gangetic plain to the middle Gangetic plain, and that's where demographic bulge is happening. It's not enough to sow rice. It's not enough to do paddy cultivation, which was so transformative around the end of the Vedic period. What was more transformative was the technology of transplantation of rice. So this is something which is happening right now in this month. If you go to the Middle Gangetic Plain, say from Allahabad to Bhagalpur, that's the Middle Gangetic Plain. So monsoon months, fields are full of water, and so the saplings, paddy saplings that are there, they are pulled out and again they are sowed back to the field at a different location, and this practice is something which increases the acreage of paddy many-fold, right? And it is this knowledge uh, which perhaps proved very transformative around the end of Vedic age, right? And what it did was that it increased the population carrying capacity of a particular patch of land, and that's why territory became important. What earlier was the basis of polity and political power, kin group, now that is giving way to a new thing, and that is territory. So Pada, Janapada, and then Mahajanapad. So territory becomes the new foundation, new source of political power, and a new kind of political spectrum is seen by the end of Vedic period, and therefore, towards the end of the Vedic period, you will find that there are texts. Now, Vedic ethos is not territory bound. Vedic ethos is kin bound. Vedic ethos is they are all born of a different kind of ecology, a different kind of social setup, and therefore urban life, urban ways of doing things which are happening around say 6th century BC. If you look at the Vedic sources and if you look at the heterodox sources, the attitude of these two set of sources towards the process of urbanization is different. Okay, so heterodox sects are little more accepting of urban ways of life, whereas the Vedic sources are, always looking down upon urban way of life as decadent, as something which has fallen from glorious, ways of doing things and so forth. This is something that happens to all of us. I mean, to our generation. I mean, we were born not in digital age, and now that everything happens digitally, so at times we end up frowning upon it कि अरे ये क्या जिंदगी है, क्या है, इस पर क्या पढ़ते हो, किताब पढ़ने का अलग मजा है, that kind of thing. So that is something which you can detect in Vedic sources and post-Vedic sources, right? Coming from different angles. So these are some of the things that are very important for us to understand. So it's one thing to accord perenniality to everything which is said in Rigved or which is contained in Rigved or which has great anteriority. Some of the things are fantastic. For example, the conceptualization of time in terms of units that are almost infinite, huge units of time are reckoned with. Now, these are some of the fantastic things that are very much there in the philosophical treatises that we understand as Upanishads and so forth. So they, they are there, but at the same time, to accord sanctity to any and everything that is contained in Rigved as something which is very sacred and so forth is something that at least as a historian we should be a little more careful about, because after all a text is born of the values and ethos and ethics of the time it was composed in, right? And that's how it goes. So a great question. I hope Anindya could make some sense of whatever I spoke as answer. And instead of going on and on with this political, economic, social changes, it would be good if more of you ask questions, and I would be happy to answer
Yes,
them
sir.
to the best of my capacity.
So, sir, we have question with Jitu and Jyoti. You can unmute and ask the question.
Hello, sir. Thank you for your lecture. I just wanted to ask one question, and then my mom also had a question. So I'll go first. I wanted to understand, probably a very basic question, but I wanted to understand where did these people first come from? We're talking about 1500 BCE. So where did these people first come from? And also, how was the society like during that time? What I don't know if I can say a governance as such, but how did they live? What sort of life did people together as a society lead? And what is happening as for context? What was happening in say rest of India? So like say I come from South India. So there were until then were there no one living here in this part? Or I just wanted to ask.
Great question. Great question. Should I attempt to answer your questions and then come to your mom?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
different questions. So yeah, you can
Okay.
first
Okay.
answer.
So where did they come from? Well, all of us are aware of this Aryan migration theory. So that's one proposition, that from around the Caspian Sea area, and this is more a kind of linguistic category that we are talking of. So one proposition that was there, and it is still commands fair degree of adherence by serious historical scholarship, that a set of same language speaking group, they migrated to different parts of the world. Some went towards Europe, right? Some went up to Iran, came up to Iran, and some didn't stop at Iran, came further east, and they were referred to as Indo-Aryans. Those who stopped at Iran, Indo-Iranians. So the Avesta text and several other Rigvedic gods and goddesses and so forth, there is some degree of familiarity or semblance that you can discover. Then they were horse riders, right? They did not know. They were chariot riders. They were using wheels that had spikes, so spoked wheels. These are some of the ethnic markers in terms of archaeology of the movement from Central Asia, from Caspian Sea to uh, Iran, to India, and some uh, wave of migrations happened westward into Europe. And linguistically, uh, there are substantiations, and archaeologically also it is substantiated as such. So one theory is this, and nowadays it is believed that they were not responsible. This migration, these migrating people were not responsible for the destruction of what existed as Harappan civilization. In fact, Harappan civilization had already declined by the time they came. So 1500 BCE is regarded as the time when Indo-Aryans came and started settling in this area. They were not intensive agriculturalists. They were pastoralists. They were using horse. They were using spoke wheel and so forth. And it is only after coming to this area, Sapta Sindhu area, and transferring further east, that they came to acquire the knowledge of agriculture, and they actually became intensive agriculturalists subsequently. And that's why most of the terms related to agriculture and agricultural operations are drawn from not Indo-Aryan words, but from local community words. Your second, so that's Indo-Aryan migration wala theory. There is another narrative which says that, well, it is the Indus people who were living here, Harappans, and it is, for example, I did refer to Dadheri as one of the painted grave sites pre-iron, and they would say that there is no disjunction between the two. So the distinction between Harappa and Vedic is something which is artificially created, uh, which is a post facto construct on account of our ideology, and it should be rather seen in continuum. So there are elements of continuity of Harappan way of life into what we understand as Vedic way of life as well. But there are some problems, and those problems are, as I said, spoked wheels, horse. Horse is not there in Harappa; it's very much there in Vedic. Spoked wheel is very much there in Vedic period, whereas Harappans used solid wheels, right? So these are very crucial things. I mean, this entire debate about continuity of Harappa or into Vedic culture is something which is standing on these things. So the moment you discover horse in Harappa, the moment you discover spoked wheel in Harappa, that narrative of continuity between Harappa and Vedic way of life will start getting a lot of traction. So there are some problems. Urbanization is yet another thing, and so forth. Script is yet another thing. So there are some problems in these narratives also. Uh, your second question was with relation to what was happening elsewhere in India, particularly in South India. Yes, uh, what is happening around the time 1500 BCE? There are megalithic societies in Deccan. They are iron using communities. They know about agriculture. They know about horses, but that's the beauty of history, that just given these ingredients, they don't on its own multiply into some transformative thing like Janapada Mahajanapada that happened in northern part of India. So they knew about iron, they did a little bit of agriculture, they were riding horses, but somehow it could not translate into a way of life that we otherwise see in North through Janapada, Mahajanapadas, and so forth. That kind of political transformation somehow didn't happen. That kind of market, like for example, Sangam age down south. Ashokan edicts mention about them as the people outside his Ashokan empire, right? Chol, Cher, Pandya, Satyaputras, and so forth. They are by name mentioned. Now, historians work on this. What kind of lifestyle did they live? They had kings, right? Uh, Even within kings, they had Muvenda, that is the big three, right? Chol, Cher, Pandyas. So there is hierarchy, but what is the economic capacity? What is the social differentiation that has happened? Well, that was very subdued. So, despite being right in the middle of a very lucrative Indo Roman trade, where India is the net recipient of gold from Europe in the Sangam period, and when I say Sangam period, think of 3rd century BCE to around 2nd century CE. Gold is coming, but what is happening to this gold? Perhaps market system in this area is not that developed, which could use this gold to further intensify things through the market system. So what happens is that gold that is coming from Europe is being used by these people as bullions. They know its value, but it is in ritual terms, it is as wealth. They are keeping it, but somehow market is not so developed, it seems so, in the Sangam period, which could give transformation, or which could bring about transformation the way it happened, it seems to have happened in the case of Mahajanpads and so forth. So these polities uh, did stay as very strong brand values in South India. So the name Chol Cher Pandya continues from Sangam age, and again around say 8th, 9th, 10th centuries, when you come to the times of imperial Cholas, they are the ones, they are using the same brand. It's like subsequently, in Indian history, every damn text claims that it is the fifth Ved. It is the fifth Ved because the brand value of Ved still continued. Similarly, the name Chol Cher Pandya is used by the imperial Cholas, or the imperial Pandyas and so forth. It is the name which is actually belonging to Sangam age. But in Sangam age, the king of Chol was nowhere equal to the power of imperial Cholas, right? That's because of socio-economic differentiation that I just spoke about. So this is how, and in several other parts of India, there are several communities living in the what we understand as Neolithic communities or Chalcolithic communities and so forth. So they are living in a village kind of life. And if you look at Indian villages in North India, the earliest times that you can trace its lineage from are the Chalcolithic villages, not Neolithic villages, Chalcolithic villages. So that's where you get the kind of village architecture that is so common in North Indian villages even today, right? So these continuities are very much there, and it also tells us one thing, that it's not in history, at least one should not be making such kind of correlations that when a Neolithic community comes into contact with a Iron Age community, then Neolithic community necessarily transforms into uh, Iron Age community. It's like saying that if a village comes into contact with a town, every villages don't transform into the towns. I mean, even today, villages exist as villages, right? So there is a degree of tenacity that's there, and we don't need to assign values to it, cultural values to it, that one way of life is more developed than the other. I mean, it's about the way we transact our life in our own comfort zones and so forth. To your mom now, uh, yes, madam, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. That was quite insightful. Yeah.
Yeah. So this lecture of yours is very informative. I wanted to understand in this Vedic period, how is the Ramayana and Mahabharata integrated as a part of it? Like, you have Ayodhya that has been discovered and was dated as 500 BC. And also you have Dwaraka, which is dated as 3500 BC. So, how are these integrated into the Vedic period? I just wanted to know that.
Yeah, one thing, that we must understand is that the two examples that you just spoke about, Ayodhya and Dwarka, basically are drawn from the title of today's lecture is Vedic Age, right? It could have been uh, epic age, right? Epic age. So Ramayana and Mahabharata. Now, Ramayana and Mahabharata, if you see, uh, in the sense of what the texts self proclaim about their timeline, Ramayana says, or as per the scheme of things, Ramayana or Ram story happened prior to Krishna story, isn't it? Right? So that's how we know this. Uh,
Uh,
right. So,
Dwaraka is almost dated as 1500 BCE, around the same time.
mhm. No, it's perfectly all right for a location to exist uh, as a location, as a name at a particular point of time. But when we say Ayodhya, it evokes a different kind of emotion, right? Similarly, as you say Dwarka, it evokes epic age flavor captured through Mahabharata, not Ramayana. Quite possible that Ayodhya and Dwarka existed as two locations even in Ramayana period. But we generally tend to segregate the two, Ayodhya with Mahabharata, Dwarka with Mahabharata, and Ayodhya with Ramayana. So a lot has to do with the baggage, cultural baggage that we carry. When historians look at these cities, right, uh, shorn of the epic presentation of these cities, they have to look at socio-economic correlates, right? So the magnificence with which a city is described in some of the texts, say of 6th century BCE or around that period. And if you look at the material correlate of it through archaeology, there is a disjunction. Now, if I say uh, Pataliputra, the iconic capital of the Mauryas, if you look at the material correlate of Pataliputra in Ashoka's period, say in Kumharar, and compare the same Pataliputra, the material remains coming from Pataliputra from post-Mauryan period. We don't talk about post-Mauryan period because there is no imperial pan-Indian presence of an empire in the post-Mauryan period. But the material correlate, the material debris of post-Mauryan Pataliputra is richer than Mauryan Pataliputra. Now, this is what we as historians need to have an eye for. That it's one thing to give an epic proportion to something. It's a craft in verbal description. It's a craft in literature that we get to see uh, in epics. But as a historian, one has to uh, cross check the proportionality, the realistic proportionality of this description with what we get from archaeology or several other sources. For example, uh, if we say that, okay, Chol Chere Pandya in Sangam age also had Raja, and so they were doing everything that subsequent Rajas did, and so forth. That's why I chose to speak about the market conditions, right? Uh, and you can, for example, again, historians are have been writing about it. The imagery of the imperial Mauryas coming from Kautilya's Arthashastra, and the reality of the fastest mode of transportation that must have been available to the Mauryans is what? Chariot, right? So the kind of command and control that we otherwise speak of to be exercised from the capital city of Pataliputra all over India, pan India, now is of course uh, getting qualified, right, by the ability of the center to send its army, how many days it must have taken. So transportation, communication, technology, we have to bring that bring those tangents into discussion to make a realistic sense of projections that we otherwise receive from epic literature, right? So searches uh, or actual historical searches and researches happening on account of the glorious depictions of personalities, institutions, and places, and also palaces, right? As presented in these epics, are to be understood with reference to the possibility of such things to have happened, or such structures to have existed in institutional terms through historical means. And this is what this exercise of historical scholarship is all about. For example, we say Hadappans did not know about iron technology. They were not using iron. It's one thing to say this, but there are quite a few other things that go on to substantiate this. The melting point of iron is 1200 degrees Celsius or onwards. Certainly not less than 1200 degrees Celsius. Now, in entire Harappa area, we don't have any material that we have been able to find whose melting point is beyond 1400 degrees Celsius or 1200 degrees Celsius. What does it say? That the pyrotechnology of the Harappans had not developed to that extent where they could have attained a temperature of 1200 degrees Celsius or 1400 degrees Celsius. Any item which melts at temperature below 1200 degrees Celsius, such items are there in Harappa. But for that technology to have gained prevalence, one had to wait till the later Vedic period, right? So these are the technological correlates through which we need to understand the timelines and the glorious descriptions that we otherwise get in epics, be it Mahabharata or Ramayana. Characters are, I mean, that is what even commonsensically, I mean, in day-to-day parlance, what do we, this is a thing of epic proportion. Epic proportion is that when you magnify something to glorious proportions, epic proportions, right? This is an epic story. So attribute these descriptions more to the craft of literature rather than to the realism of history. I'm done.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Uh, Thank you so much. Now we have a next question from Mandira ji and then Swati ji. So, Mandira ji, you can turn on your mic and ask.
Yes, thank you. My question is, as these people came into, say, the upper Gangetic Valley, uh, uh, whom did they encounter? The locals? Who were they, and what were their languages? What were their occupations? Were they also pastoralists?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking this, Mandiraji. Uh, we have descriptions in Rigved where there is this mention of Battle of 10 Kings, or there are several other communities, Das, Dasyus, and several other communities also. Some of them are looked at disparagingly, some of them are described in very disparaging terms. So it means that they were it was not a very well knit monolithic community that we understand as Aryans, and pitted against communities who were local inhabitants. So they had some skirmishes with groups within the same language speaking, and also with some people, with some communities who certainly don't seem to be of the same language group. So you can claim that they are local communities and so forth. For example, in the vocabulary of Vedic words, by the time we reach later Vedic times, we find several words which historians label as loan words. Loan, loan words. What are they? They are the words picked up from local communities and have entered the Aryan vocabulary or Vedic vocabulary. It's like several of the English words or some French words that we have started using as part of Hindi as well, or even the reverse is true. I mean, Englishmen have started using the word Pandit, right? And so forth. So they have also picked up some words which are not germane to their culture, but it has entered their vocabulary. Now, such instances are symptomatic of interactions that is happening. Now, that interaction could be violent, that interaction could be cooperative, or it could be incidental. So, when you say that who are the people, what are they doing? Yes, they are communities who are not speaking the same language, who have not migrated from somewhere, but they are doing little bit of agriculture, little more agriculture than what they knew about, the Aryans knew about, and therefore uh, entire vocabulary of agriculture related operations in the Aryan words are mostly drawn from non-Aryan non-Aryan basket, right? Uh, there is this very common expression these days. Also, we use it, say, khana bana, Kam Vam, uh, Pani Mani, that kind of thing. Phonetically similar but meaning nothing. Oh, now this trend itself, this style of speaking perhaps is not Aryan, Indo-Aryan. It is of Munda origin, right? Or it could have come from communities who were living here prior to the coming of the Aryans, in case they came from outside, right? So such interactions are written about in Vedic sources, and historians have inferred quite a bit from them. And then there is also subsequently the process of assimilation that is happening, and over a period of time, it becomes difficult to segregate identities in clean timelines. So, I mean, in textbooks, the way it comes to us, uh, actually, if you look at sources, it's not that neat, it's not that linear, it's not that coherent. So for the sake of generalization, we tend to write this because that's how our minds work. We tend to generalize and uh, compartmentalize things in neat categories. That's how we make sense. But if you actually look at life and times of the times that we are talking of, Vedic age, such processes of acculturations or interactions, etc., they are very many, and they are not very neat, and they are not as categorical as they are made out in these texts. So as I said in the beginning, that I may not be able to answer quite a few things because we actually don't have that neat answer in sources either. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we have Swatiji. Swatiji, you can unmute and read us.
Yeah, my question also may sound very basic, but I just want to know during the early Vedic period, the people were pastoral. They came from outside, and but Rig Veda mandalas were being written at that time. So, what was the power structure, and whether the power structure had any link with the authors of these mandalas? And can we call it the beginning of Hinduism? It's just a question.
On the issue of Hinduism, I would say that, what we practice as Hinduism today in terms of religion, religiosity, belief systems, and so forth, the chief mode of worship in Rig Veda is certainly sacrifice, yajna, and so forth. The postulations, the assumptions that Agni will carry your wishes to God, and so forth. So they are little more materialistic and transactional, but the present day Hinduism, if you look at the journey right from 1500 BCE to down to the present times, there has not been any categorical severance from this. There have been changes, of course, in the Upanishadic period. Sacrifice was not so important. More than that, if you had to be religious and convey your religiosity, you had to go out and search for knowledge, right? So it's happening not only in heterodox sects like Buddhism and Jainism, it's also happening in the Vedic domain. So you don't get to see, you know, people with religious bent of mind in the Vedic period going out in search of knowledge to forest and so forth, but you start getting to see them by the time you reach 6th century BC onwards. So acquisition of knowledge becomes the chief mode of worshipping. Subsequently, when you come to the Puranic times, or if you look at the Puranic literature, you find that doing puja, doing kirtan, doing karma pradhan or karma kand, as we say it, so they become important. So it is faith, it is allegiance which become important, and it is the personalized attachment with God that becomes important in the Puranic literature. And most of the gods who we worship today are Puranic gods. They are not Vedic gods, or they are not Upanishadic philosophies that we practice in present day Hinduism. So Hinduism also has a very long trajectory in terms of journey, but yes, it has not rejected Vedas altogether. It has it has carried it on its shoulder, and although the fashion has changed, but umbilical cord has not been cut for good, right? From any times, it could be Vedic period or it could be Upanishadic period or whatever. So that's the way Hinduism has moved on. But ma'am, your earlier question was
What was the power structure at that time? And
power
whether the
structure.
authors were linked with the power structure in any fashion manner.
Yeah, power structure. Yeah. I spoke about it that it appears to be kin based. So king was the king of the kin group. Kin group. So it is the family, extended family, lineage, who is controlled by the big fellow who is the king, right? And for example, I'll just give you one instance. Ram, Lord Ram, right? So how do we say? One way in which we refer to Ram is Raghukul Raja Ram. Raghukul Raja Ram. Now here we are referring to Ram as the king of a particular kul. Kul is family lineage, right? Raghukul ke Raja Ram. And then when we refer to Ram in another way, we call him Avadh Naresh Ram. Avadh ke Raja Ram. Right? Now here we are referring to the territorial power of Ram. So allegiance to Ram, bhakti to Ram, connection with Ram as some sort of divine power is one thing, but referring to them in terms of the existing power structure, quite possible that if the future generation refers to Ram through some other connotation, if holding of maybe if the if land holding is not the real estate now is the spectrum or digital area. So maybe tomorrow someone starts referring to Ram in terms of digital power that he enjoyed, that he had control on, right? So this is how historical sources keep referring to them, and we should be mindful of this. We should be mindful of this, that it is the power structure of the authors of a particular text who present icons in their own vocabulary, rather than the same power structure existing since time immemorial. So that is the point. That is the point.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Srishti.
Thank
So, do we have more questions?
No, sir, we don't have
I
any.
wanted to ask just
Uh,
a last question, but we are short on time, I guess.
Yes, yes. It
Maybe
should
you
be.
could summarize it fast, sir.
Yeah.
Uh, so my question was, you are a scholar of Vedic age. What are the unique challenges of understanding that age for our civilization compared to, let's say, people living in other parts of the world? I mean, you're having to guess the political structure of that time from religious texts, and that's a unique challenge, I believe. And do you think that's common to all other parts that were
Great question.
uh,
Great question.
uh,
Can I know your
yeah.
name?
My name is Tarun, sir.
Tarun.
Tarun
Tarun.
Bhargav. Yeah.
Great question. I'll just give you one instance. I'll be brief. Since I was talking, one question was about Ramayana, Mahabharata, epic literature, epic age, 6th century BC, 8th century BC, around the same time. Look at Europe. Look at their epics belonging to the same period. So it's Odyssey, Homer, and so forth, right? What are they writing about? What's the root word of economics? We understand economics as something a very sophisticated branch of knowledge which goes into policy making, and uh, nationalities and finances are all wired into it and so forth. So economics today is a very sophisticated discipline. But what is the root word of economics? It's oikos. Oikos, a Greek word drawn from Odyssey, right? Now, it's also an epic. What does it mean? And what timeline we are talking about? 8th century BCE, around the time supposedly Ramayana and Mahabharata were composed, not written, but composed. Okay? the same period, later Vedic period, right? What is the meaning of oikos? Oikos is the household. In European sense, oikos represented household. So what all did household include? It included family members, it included the land asset, it included the animals that they used for cultivating their fields, right? That was oikos. So managing the oikos is one thing, and there is a family head who is doing it. Now, can you it becomes so luring to connect this with the Indian scenario. Around 6th century BC, Indian sources, we get to hear of grihastha, gahapatis. Gahapatis. Who are gahapatis? They are the big, resourceful people with big family members, their assets, landed assets, right? And they are also into trade, commerce, and they also had animals, animal wealth, pashudhan, uh, khet, that is land that they are cultivating, little bit of exposure to trade, commerce, and they are managing it. So Gahapatis are wealthy people managing household, managing their fields, managing their animals, and that's how economics happens. So there is a connection with connection of Gahapatis with what went on to develop as economics. So subsequently, it became say local economics, then say Janapad economics, Mahajanapad economics, and today we understand it as national economics, national economy, right? So this is how institutions are to be looked at in comparative terms. So since you asked this question, that's why I was so impressed with this question, that through this example of Gahapatis and Oikos, you can almost belong to the same period, similar reference. You can see the simultaneous development of institutions, economic institutions, happening independent in India, independent in Europe, but by and large they are following the same trajectory. Then over a period of time, issuing of coins, issuing of currency became the ethnic marker of sovereignty. Now in India, even the iconic Mauryas are not issuing coins. It is the Shrenis, it is the trade guilds which are issuing coins. It is only in the postmodern period that kings became, the sovereigns became the sole issuer of coins and became the monopoly. It became the royal monopoly to issue coins. So it follows a different trajectory. In Europe, it could have taken a different route. In India, it took a different route. But this is how institutional growth happens across continents, across civilizations. But there are some striking parallels that you can discover even in literature, even in epics, and so forth. That's why I was tempted to answer your query through this example, which you may find it interesting. Thank you for this question again, Tarun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we don't have any other question. So,
Great,
yeah.
Srishti.
So I
It was
think now,
wonderful. It was wonderful interacting with such a enlightened audience, and
yes.
displaying the wide variety of interest, and I am absolutely thrilled by the quality of your audience, and I am so enriched intellectually by the interaction that I had with all of you. And to the distinguished silent members, silent participants, I have a lot of respect for silence as well. It did
Okay.
tremendous ego massaging for me that so many people are locked in. Thank you very much. Thank you, Srishti.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for such a beautiful lecture, because I know these topics are very tough, but your lucid examples and very conductive examples make us uh, very easy for us to understand this time period in a very academic and very graceful manner. So thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful lecture. It's our privilege.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.